Recently, the legendary sponsorship marketer Ricardo Fort had this to say about Airbnb's Olympic and Paralympic partnership. Fort said this could be one of the highest ROIs in the history of sponsorships, according to his opinion. And the reason for that is by becoming a top Olympic partnership sponsor of the games in Tokyo and Beijing and Paris, Milano Cortina, and then Los Angeles, that the company had actually helped those cities delay potential local regulations that might have limited the freedom for Airbnb to operate. So think about that. By partnering with this mega event that's going to bring so much economically, culturally, financially to the city, Airbnb probably pushed off threats and timing for regulation that might have curbed its widespread appeal, its ability to operate as it does best, and the opportunity for people to be hosts for Airbnb properties. It's really interesting that Ricardo's comments felt that it's unlikely, and I say this in quotes, that a host city would impose such a damaging regulation on one of the IOC's top partners. The sponsorship helps Airbnb build their brand, support athletes, and protect their business in all future host cities. The investment might have saved Airbnb billions with a B. Now, it's got me thinking about Airbnb and the Olympics. As a person who's been fortunate enough to attend a few Olympic Games, we have quite often leveraged Airbnb as a great place to stay. Way back in 2012, I went to London. We stayed in Notting Hill. And one of the neat things was when we arrived, our host handed us a little guide that Airbnb had put together, a guide to the neighborhood, some tips on where to go to the vegetables or to buy fish, the metro stations that were close by. I guess the Tube, I'm thinking Paris already, but thinking back to the Tube in London. How to get around, obviously, souvenir places, when the market was open. Another thing they did, which I thought was really interesting, was they actually arranged for some Airbnb meetups in the community. So if you were staying in an Airbnb, they had organized with a local pub to say, hey, look, on Wednesday or Thursday or Saturday or whatever it was, we're going to have some guests, Airbnb guests, come by, provide them with some refreshments and opportunity to meet one another. And because you're there for the Olympics, it wasn't like we're just there randomly for a weekend and everybody in Notting Hill who happened to be, getting a Airbnb got together, but there for that Olympic spirit, that Olympic pride, that Olympic meetup. So going back to Ricardo's words, what he's done is kind of sum up how Airbnb is one of the most unique sponsors of the Olympic and Paralympic movement. And when you look at this era of partnership marketing that we're in now, where people are looking for new types of measurements, right? Big brands don't need, just simply media impressions. Yes, they always want to stay top of mind. Yes, they always want to be driving top of funnel. But sponsorship or partnership, depending on the term you like to use, I prefer sponsorship, has to drive new types of metrics. And those metrics can range from everything from employee engagement to building community to accessing and maybe building credibility with your prosumers to curating and creating brand champions, not just people that like your business, that like your product, that like your service, but people that are actually going to go out there and advocate for your brand. And in the case of Airbnb, there's an incredible return here from the impact, I guess maybe the outcome of delayed potential regulations that would impact their business. Absolutely incredible. And so this is a really interesting argument to put forward for the value of collaboration between a brand, an international property, and a governmental organization, right? Countries, regions, provinces, states, communities, cities, towns, and villages want these events. These events do not have enough funding just from ticketing. Many of these events do not have enough funding from television rights. That's more of a, National Football League model where the TV rights are so strong. They need corporate partnerships. They need that injection of dollars. Sponsorship of things like the Olympics and Paralympics gets back to the golden age of sponsorship. Literally, without those funds, you don't have athletes competing. You don't have opportunities for coaches to develop their charges. You don't have the creation of volunteer opportunities. And so Airbnb's impact on the games is, yes, financial, but also this notion of providing a diverse opportunity for people to attend the games. So you do have this official partnership with Ecor, and Ecor is doing an amazing job with all their different brands, hosting and hospitality. But as you know, when an Olympics comes to a city, quite often the demand exceeds the supply. And so alternatives like Airbnb allow volunteers who are coming from all over the world to find convenient, quality places to stay. There's also an impact from Airbnb on athletes because Airbnb provides avenues for athletes in training to stay when they're not in their home markets, when they're moving around to different competitions. Airbnb also supports those athletes, some of them financially, but in a broad sense, again, the utility of their product, the fundamental proposition from which it was founded way back from that political convention when it literally was an air mattress business, rings true and through the entire Olympic partnership structure. Airbnb takes their impact on the games very seriously. Legacy is something that's really important to them, something they talk about. The legacy of helping those Olympians and Paralympians get to the games. The legacy of providing access that ends up supporting achievement. The legacy of creating a infrastructure or platform for literally thousands upon thousands of local hosts to utilize their property, to welcome guests from around the world, to generate supplemental income, to really help be part of that amazing experience. And so you've got this really neat legacy component for Airbnb, their hosts and their visitors and their guests, who all contribute to an unbelievable, vibrant games atmosphere. So yes, I love it. I'm a little biased. The Paris Games will be the third time that I've utilized an Airbnb staycation. I didn't mean staycation, location to stay in. So my word's getting a little ahead of me. The other thing that's really interesting for me is that when we look at games in markets like Paris, where you've got a lot of infrastructure, you've got a massive tourist city, where you've got this unbelievable opportunity to have what is the first kind of fully attended Olympics since, I guess, 2018, because we had 22 obviously was not typical games because people couldn't come and see. 20, which happened in 21, where of course the horrible situation having to postpone the games by a year. Actually, I'm going to say 2016 because even 2018, which was in Pyeongchang, it was a marvelous experience. Unfortunately, it was not well attended. If you actually think back, there was concerns about North and South Korea and tensions there. It was a games where certain countries for the first time were not allowed to compete as their country. So you had to sort of dull down the games themselves in Pyeongchang, which is a small city on the coast, very far from Seoul. I mean, they built a high-speed train to get people there. So I'm going to rephrase that and say this is really the first, what I'm going to call fully loaded spectator tourist attraction game since 2016. That's 8 years. This is incredible pent-up demand for this year's games. Paris, demand that's going to outstrip supply. We're looking at, some 15 million visitors coming. And so I think this will be an opportunity for Airbnb, for Olympic hosts, for the IOC, for the Los Angeles OCOG, to really learn about how the intersection or the utilization of Airbnb type platform will benefit the games in a major city. And yes, this will also provide lessons for what goes down in Brisbane in 2013. And let's not skip over Milano Cortina in 2026. So, interestingly enough, the Olympics were the first global partnership that Airbnb ever got into. They have a 9-year, 5 games partnership. I'm very fortunate that at an upcoming conference we're hosting, Sponsorship X Paris, we're going to have Felix Vaux, who's the Government Affairs League, and OCOG, NOC, MPC Relations, Olympics and Paralympics Airbnb. Felix will be joining us on stage to talk about all these things that I just shared with you in a much more knowledgeable, authentic, and professional manner. But for now, I'd love for you to think about Olympics, partnerships, new approaches to ROI that aren't just about media impressions and social media likes. I'm Mark Harrison, founder of Sponsorship X.